Hey, awesomes, how we doing? Uh, Sorry for my delay in getting this video back out to you. As I said in my uh, announcement to you yesterday, somehow I got something stuck underneath my eye, and I couldn't get it out, and so had to go through all that rigmarole. So anyway, that's all set, I think, for now. And so you guys are working this week on your Project 3A collaborative research proposals. I have a video. I touched on that already. I do want to talk a little bit today about the importance of primary research, especially when it comes to this project, and how it's important that you want to incorporate that into your proposal, and then think really about how you're going to perform that over the next several weeks, so that it shows up in your Project 3C final report that helps inform you make the recommendations that you're going to make for your recommendation report. So hope everyone's having a good week. Hope you all are well. I'm better, so that's good. All right, so let's. Okay, so here's where we're at. You guys are hopefully reading the Project 3 assignment sheet again, and then you looking at Chapter 5. And as I said in the announcement yesterday, that the discussion post is posted, and the discussion post for this week, for Friday, and then again on Sunday, deals with primary research and having you look at back into Markel and really kind of get at the top of our mind what it is that we're doing, and the kinds of primary research methods that we're looking at, especially as Markel tells us. He does a really good job of explaining that to us. And then Capredi gives us some good information about writing research papers in general, and then it's good background information to have. So this week, right, you have the discussion post due. That would be tomorrow night at midnight. You have your initial one where you talk about your interests in primary research, which one, explain a little bit how you think it's beneficial and useful to you, its importance, significance, and then you'll find a couple of your other classmates and continue that conversation talking about the importance of primary research. So I will touch just briefly. So let's do that right here. I think that's a good idea. So primary research, I think the importance of primary research that we all might want to always try to keep in mind is that it's one thing. Secondary research is important, very important. But standing alone by itself, we would end up doing research in a vacuum, where we're sitting back, what I call armchair researchers, and we're making pronouncements, or in this case here, in technical communication especially, we're making recommendations that are going to affect the real world. It could be a set of instructions, how somebody goes about doing something, right? So when you think about a set of instructions, your primary research will be your user test. Or some form of where you will put that into place. And in the summer, fortunately in the spring summer class, sometimes we run out of time to do that, but your user test becomes a form of primary research. You could do the same thing with your resumes and your cover letters, right? So peer review is in a way a form. You're having somebody look at your document directly and provide some feedback, as opposed to looking at it yourself, perhaps through a lens of revision or different lenses of revision. So you conduct your secondary research and you combine it with your primary research, especially because in primary research, when we're talking about for Project 3, A, B, and C or whatever, we're looking at a local community. So it becomes very context driven. And when we think about primary research, it also helps us think about audience and purpose, because it always comes back down to audience and purpose. Who's your audience, and what's the purpose of the document? What's the purpose of the documents? How are they going to be distributed? What's the work that they're going to do? Who is going to be looking at them? What is their subject position, or what's their context from which they are going to approach your document? Is it favorable, unfavorable? You might think about their levels of education, perhaps, if you're going to submit something to a university department, as opposed to maybe a local office, a social media outlet, or a PR office, or whatever. Knowing your audience and then the purpose of your documents is also helps when you do the primary research to find out what's actually going on, especially contextually or locally, as this assignment is having us do. So that's my little 2 cents worth, if you will, for primary research and why I feel it's important. So I've got pulled up here. Before I do that, note in chapter 5, if you will. It starts on page, I think I may have said this in the lesson, it starts on 94, conducting primary research. And so I feel like primary research, and the reason I'm focusing on that this week and talking about it probably repeatedly is because I know the majority of you have had, I'm sure, in your previous English composition classes or composition research classes or English classes, been taught to use library databases to do secondary research, maybe using Google Scholar, define academic sources, which you will also need for this project. But you need those, you'll want those in conjunction with, at least in your proposal will be full of secondary research, perhaps at this moment, right? Should be probably the majority of it. And then the rest of Project 3C. So in Project 3A is when you say, okay, here's the secondary research we've done to kind of give us the background information, to kind of set up what it is that we're going to do. And then you will talk about the primary research, right, as your plan of work, things that you're going to do. And then the results of, right, and your method and how you went about doing that, whether you did surveys, questionnaires, or whether you did maybe you did observation, et cetera, right? One of these ones from the Markel text. You'll talk about how you're going to go about doing that and some sample questions, right? What are you trying to find out, right? As Markel says in here, you think about what it is that you want to find out, what is it that you want to know, and make sure that your questions are teasing out what it is that you want to know without being biased or misleading, right? So that you're just getting what you want to know, but you want to make sure that your questions are at least tailored enough that you're asking the right questions so that the answers you get will cover the subject to which you are addressing, if that makes sense. So with all that out there in the world to you, I would also draw your attention outside of chapter 5 for this week, and I probably should have put it on the readings, which I think I've mentioned already. The structure for Project 3A you will find in chapter 11 of your textbook. So I just want to make sure and reiterate that to you. As I said in this one when I went over this earlier in the week, this starts on page 309 of your textbook. And you'll notice that this memo format that we're using, the date, to, from, subject, listing everyone who's in the group. Most of the because the assignment sheet specifically says you want an introduction section, right? You want maybe proposed tasks or a plan of work section, and then you'll want like a schedule of how this thing's going to go, and then maybe something that speaks about the experience, who's bringing what to the table in your group, and maybe how you're going to be working together, or something like that. Those are the 4 main sections. The sample in the book that starts on 309 does start with a purpose statement and then a summary. Some students have found that to be helpful in their groups to summarize what's coming up. I'm more concerned about a summary when we get to Project 3C. So if you want to follow this particular formatting from the sample that we've got right here, I'm totally fine with that. And then use chapter 11 if you want to find out any more about some of those sections. And then, of course, obviously the assignment sheet explains that what we want to do in each one of those sections for Project 3A. And then again, this is our proposal. So in this initial, for Project 3A, I am your audience, okay? But you're going to tell me who your audience is, right? For Project 3A. So taking a look at this down here, let's go. So the introduction, right? Draft of a problem statement. It's got a purpose and an audience statement, background on the problem, a discussion of your key sources of information, scope and organization of the remaining proposal, and a discussion of any keywords or technical terms that I may or may not be familiar with. Then you have your plan of work, and this is where you're going to really tell me what you've already found out, some preliminary research findings and some results, because you should be diving into whatever the topic is. If you're going to do what are you going to do for your primary research, interview, survey work, how you might be thinking about and analyzing this data. And then here again, if there's some technical terms that may need to be teased out or whatever, and then your secondary research. And then you'll talk about, you can reference chapter 5, which it says to do here. And then I'd like to see some of your research questions, what it is that you're trying to find out. And then here again, talking about the qualifications, tell me a little bit about, who's in each of your group, what they might bring to the table. And the budget is probably the wrong word. I'm looking more like for the project the life cycle of the project, which you will see in the book. Let me just give you a specific page number that you'll find that on there. More schedule is on page 314 I'm really more concerned about how you're budgeting your time from a scheduling standpoint, not necessarily a budgeting of money, right? As it says right here, the budgeting of your time and resources in terms of the project's lifestyle and your collaboration, because turn this in this week, and then the final one is due like 2 or 3 weeks later. So how are you going to get everything done in the next 2 to 3 weeks is really what I'm looking at if that makes sense. All right, guys, I think that catches us up for the week. I'm around, obviously, if you need anything, if there's more I can do to support you, or if you want to meet with me or whatever, I will make myself as available as I possibly can. So that's it for now. You guys work away, work on your project 3As. If you have any specific questions in your groups, or if you're not in a group, right now, then you please email me as soon as possible, if not sooner. Okay. All right, guys, you have a most wonderful day. Thank you for your patience this week, and we will talk again very, very, very soon. Bye.